Hey folks, this is Chi Baker from Street Tactical Integrations here in Portland, Oregon. Our school emphasizes martial arts, specifically geared towards self-protection and healing. And today what I want to do is cover different types of martial arts and what they emphasize. And with that, acknowledging that depending on the teacher, the instructor's experience, what else they may incorporate into the art, that Muay Thai instructor may incorporate some aspects of Kali, etc. But kind of look in general about kind of different types of martial arts and what they offer. And what this aims to do is help the average person understand martial arts in general, what they offer, and essentially what might be the best martial art for you to choose based on your goals or what you want to gain or accomplish out of training martial arts. In general, we say that there's no bad martial arts. I would kind of clarify that there's no bad martial arts that have tested, that have kind of gone through the test of time and have stuck around, or have been pressure tested in situations and have shown validity. Certainly there's different martial arts, usually ones that are kind of made up that don't have validity, so there are some bad martial arts out there. In general, what you want to do is pick a martial art that actually suits your needs. And based on your needs, a martial art is going to provide that or not provide that. For some of you know, my training background started in judo, moved to karate where I gained my first black belt, then went on to kung fu, kind of interchanged tai chi chuan and qigong, then moved on to jeet kune do and kaja kimbo, and in that incorporating Filipino martial arts of Kali. I also wrestled throughout high school and have kind of taken a lot of workshops in different arts. So I'll talk a little bit about those martial arts as we're going through these, trying not to put too much of a bias on what I teach and what I've studied, understanding again there's other martial arts out there. I've also, part of I think what's helpful to know is I train military, both current and former. I am a former Leo and been in the martial arts now for 40 years. I've trained and taught people who study karate, taekwondo, Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, JKD, Wushu, kickboxing, Muay Thai. So I understand a fair amount of these different martial arts, and that kind of helps provide some of the information that I'm going to provide. Again, this is information from my life experience. We're talking in general here. There's going to be exceptions to every rule. If you understand the concepts, hopefully it will better help you understand the format and help you gain from what I'm discussing. Okay, so the first kind of martial arts category that we're going to talk about is what I consider combat, or the combative martial arts. And when I talk about combat, I'm talking about the military, I'm talking about war. And again, people who are in the military, they do a lot of cross training. They're going to do the ballistic training of rifles and handguns, pistols. They're going to do lots of different training. Part of their training is martial arts training. And depending on what branch of the military you go into and what specific section, department you sign up for, you may get more martial art training or not. In general, when we talk about combat, what first comes to mind in terms of what is the job of the military? Okay. For myself, when I think of military, I think of the job of the military is to kill, i.e. for them not to get killed. So their training is very oriented to killing. Again, they're in a war situation where the enemy presents itself. They're not going to talk it out. They're not going to try to negotiate. They're going to try to shoot the enemy to kill them so that they in turn don't get killed. It's kind of a gross overlay of it. In terms of military training, typically the first emphasis is on guns. Okay. Then the training may move to knives, and lastly to what we call empty hands. So when you are not able to access a weapon, deploy a weapon, or you've had your weapon stripped or taken away from you. So that's kind of the category of kind of what I would see as their training. Again, guns to knives to empty hands. So if you're looking for more combat-oriented martial arts, again, if your job, not your interest, hopefully, is to kill and not get killed, then learning a martial art that is really focused on the military. So martial arts like that are Picchita Tercia, so some of the Kali arts. Again, I'm trained in Picchita Tercia. I helped develop and now am the chief instructor for a derivative of Bunhap Kundo, which is Kaji Kimbo, progressive tactical systems. And we created the system to help people gain the skills to survive in combat, and then down to paramilitary, which I'll talk about, police, and civilians. Other ones are things like Sistema, which is the Russian martial arts, and Krav Maga. So if you look at those systems, those are really aimed, again, their curriculum is mostly going to focus on guns, deployment and retention, on managing knives, of using knives and managing knife attacks, and then lastly, empty hands. Okay. The second one is what I consider paramilitary. And paramilitary tends to be people who were former military operators or people who are trained in what we would consider paramilitary. So SWAT, okay? SWAT is a section of the police. It's a specialized police force, and they are paramilitary in terms of their training. They're going in to deal with a criminal act that usually is involving known criminals with guns. So they're not going into petty theft. They're not policing the street. They're actually being deployed to a situation that it's known on site that they will be needing guns to manage people with guns. Okay, so when we look at paramilitary, we look at things like SWAT or other specialized police forces. We're also looking at people who are potentially in the private security sector. So these are people, again, typically these are former military who are now working to protect a client, a package, and they may very well have to use significant force using guns to kill somebody. Okay, so that's their mindset, that's their training. Again, their emphasis goes back to the order of guns, knives, empty hands. Okay, and along with paramilitary and military, there may be some training in verbal de-escalation tactics. So we don't want to kind of leave that out. But again, when we're talking martial arts, sometimes we talk about verbal martial arts, but martial arts, that's kind of where we're headed here. Paramilitary, in terms of their order, you know, here are the objectives: to kill and not to get killed. Paramilitary typically is to protect, right? So if you think of SWAT, yes, they're there to manage the criminals, but they're to protect the hostages. They protect the general public. So their number one focus is on protecting. These guys, the number one focus, the military, is on to kill. We also know that they are given the permission to kill as necessary, right? So again, in order to protect people, they may need to kill. And then, particularly like SWAT teams, they may be looking at detaining. So detaining criminals. Very rarely are private security looking at detaining. They're usually looking at getting the package, the client, from a safe place to a safe place, or to manage a crowd in a way to maintain safety. Okay. The next category is police. Again, we're working down the scale of kind of use of force, but also the focus of martial arts, right? So with police, again, their number one is to protect, right? Again, they may need to detain. Police versus paramilitary and military, that their training in martial arts and in the use of guns, all those, is a far lesser degree. Police aren't typically, they come on a situation where they might need to use a gun, versus the other ones are launching into where their guns are, ready for action. So they're ready to use their guns, versus police. Usually they're going to be looking at use of force or presence of force, so that they're going to come in hopefully with multiple police cars and police officers that will de-escalate the situation. They're going to look at verbal de-escalation as primary tools, and then secondary, drawing weapons and using guns and such. So their training is going to be different. It's typically going to be at a lower or smaller scale. But again, they're going to run the same lines here of guns, knives, and empty hands in terms of kind of the launch of their training or the overall kind of priority of their training. Next on the scale, what we're looking at here is self-protection. Okay. So when I look at self-protection, I look at arts that that they have students, the teachers are focusing on skills to kill. And again, the idea is that the person is trying to get home safe at whatever means necessary. Again, the least violent means necessary, but whatever means it takes to get the person home, that they're willing to use those skills, those tactics, those tools, whether it be a stick, a knife, or a gun, to get home safely. So in terms of the focus point, that some of it's to kill, some of it's to protect, some of it's to kill as necessary, very little is to detain the attacker, but it's really self-preservation. And if you look at the next one down, which is sports or competition, that when we talk about self-protection, you're taking all the rules of sports and throwing them out and saying, we're actually going to do the opposite. So you're allowed to blind the person, you're allowed to hit and crush the windpipe, you're allowed to hit the ears and cause disequilibrium, you're allowed to break bones, you're allowed to kick the groin, you're allowed to destroy the knee, you're allowed to hit the spine, the back of the head. So you're allowed to do lethal measures, blows. You're also allowed to do things that are potentially going to maim somebody. So obviously in competition, you're not allowed to maim somebody for life. So you can't blast their knees so they're never going to walk again. You're not allowed to blind their eyes so that they can't see out of that eye again. You're not allowed to crush their windpipe so they're potentially going to die. Those things are not allowed in competition, or at least the majority of competition. In self-protection, we say we're allowed to do all those, and we train in those, and the focus is those. And so instead of trying to see how many rounds that you're going to go, you're actually going directly for life-threatening, potential life-threatening strikes that are going to eliminate that assailant, that threat. So again, the focus is very different. There's not a lot of forms that are involved in self-protection. There may be a couple. There may be flow drills, but in terms of long katas and forms, those are removed from most self-protection aspects. And the focus is, I'm not here to spar, I'm not here to compete, I'm here to destroy you because you're trying to take my life. Very different mentality, very different set of skills. Usually that, again, we go in the opposite though. We go to start with empty hands to knives to guns. So I think good self-protection curriculums and schools will incorporate all these. Will incorporate an empty hand, meaning no weapons, a handheld bladed edge weapon, whether it be a knife, a sword, and a gun. So whether you're just going to learn how to manage a gun if it gets drawn, or you're actually going to look on how to deploy and retain these weapons and such as knives and guns. So self-protection. When I look at self-protection, again, one that I study is Jeet Kune Do, so JKD. I also, again, study and teach Kaju. We've talked about Sistema, we've talked about Krav Maga. Then you start to look at some schools say they offer classes in self-protection. And this goes into kind of a little bit of some critical points, is that some of these schools, let's say Taekwondo, okay, or arguably, which I'm sure I'm going to get some debate about, is Jiu-Jitsu. So these arts are competition arts, and you can create a curriculum out of these competition arts towards self-protection. So it's made for competition and you're adapting it or orienting it towards self-protection. Now my question is that really the best fit for self-protection? And are you going to want to go to an instructor who's mostly trained in competition, who's says they're trained or going to help you learn the skills of self-protection? It's a very different mind frame. Again, we talk about different skill set and different tools. Here's the metaphor. You've got 3 doctors. You've got a foot doctor, a cardiac doctor, a heart doctor, surgeon, and you've got a brain surgeon. Okay, so you've got foot surgeon, heart surgeon, brain surgeon. Each are at the top of the field. Each are amazing. And you have a brain tumor. And if you don't get the brain tumor out, it's going to kill you. If the operation goes wrong, you either die or potentially you're paralyzed for life. You're wheelchair bound, you're paraplegic or quadriplegic. Are you going to go to a foot doctor? Are you going to go to a heart doctor or heart surgeon? Or are you going to go to the brain doctor / brain surgeon? Life-threatening? Which one are you going to choose? Most of you hopefully are going to choose the brain surgeon, right? That's what they specialize in, that's what they're trained in, that's their territory. If you go to the foot doctor, well, the foot surgeon knows about surgery, knows the protocol of surgery, knows about the body. Are they going to be the best fit? They're like, well, I took a couple seminars, kind of learned some aspects of the brain and brain surgery, so I could probably pull it off. I could develop something for you, right? Or you're going to say, no, here's somebody, that's what they do, that's their specialty, that's what they're trained in, that's what they've gone to school for, right? So if you take a competition art and you say, well, I want to use the competition for self-protection, you're kind of trying to cheat yourself and get something where it may or may not really be. Now, of course, there's instructors in Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo who may be appropriate to teach you self-protection, but if that's not what they specialize in, that's not what they train, that's not what they teach day in and day out, are they the best candidate? That's your choice. But I think it's a necessity to say, what is it that you're looking for? Okay? Okay, so again here, the goal is to protect your life And most of that is we orient it towards escape. When you're teaching self-protection, the number one goal is to escape, to go home, get away, get home safe. Okay? The second one is to injure, right? If necessary, to kill. Right? And most of the time, again, what I talk about is that this is trained in the opposite. Instead of guns, knives, empty hand as a priority, it's empty hands, knives, and then guns. Okay, so we're looking at the scale of force, right? And what we're legally able to do, and maybe what you're morally willing to do, and how to utilize that. So, the fifth one, as I've mentioned, is competition. Now, remember, I've trained in competition martial arts. In fact, I trained for a long time in karate, which is a competition martial art. And I competed. I competed in wrestling, so I very much know the competition mentality, form, training, arena. And there's nothing wrong with it. We also talk about competition in terms of, sometimes we talk it as dueling. Okay. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo, karate, they're amazing athletes. They're amazing at what they do. And there's nothing to scoff at about that. And some people, that's what they want to do. They want to compete. They want to duel. They want to go for those trophies. Or they just want to compete on the mat for fun, right? Competition, I think, really elevates people's fitness level, potentially even more so than self-protection. Because self-protection, remember, you're not going rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds. You're trying to get in and get out. So bam, 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 and you're out, right? Competition is you're trying to figure things out. You're trying to get in your blows, shoot in, get in, get the takedown, everything, and you're trying to kind of, you need to be conditioned for those long, extended periods. That's good for self-protection, but that's not necessarily the objective, is to see how long you can go. In fact, the idea is not to outlast, it's to escape, to get away as fast as possible. So there's a lot of merit to competition. But again, when you're doing that, you're not allowed to maim or kill. You can't blast the knee. You can't jab the eye. You can't chop the throat, right? You can't do any of those things. You can't break the elbow, snap the elbow. Those things are illegal. They're frowned upon. You either get disqualified or you get permanently removed from the being able to compete. So you're thrown off the circuit. So in competition, it's going to create a different mindset, a different skill set. Competition, I also break it down into what I consider contact and no contact. So contact, again, is the sparring aspect. It's the grappling aspect of those things. Non-contact can be forms, right? So, and forms are broken down into two categories of empty hand form, right? So these different katas you probably see like with karate, or weapons forms, right? So a lot of wushu, you've got spear, sword, nunchucks, all these different types of weapons, and you have forms and competitions within those. Again, that's the realm that you're in. That's what you train. Again, you're not training to hurt anybody. You may learn aspects of how to hurt people, but time in and time out, you're training to set your mind, set your body, set your skill set, not to hurt anybody into a significant degree. Okay. The next one is fitness. So again, for competition, we got jits, right? We've got taekwondo, right? Muay Thai is a great one. Karate, right? Those are all aspects of competition martial arts, and of course, there's multiple other ones. Fitness. So, again, there's crossovers in these. I know a lot of people do jits for fitness. It is incredible. I used to wrestle. If you're a wrestler, a grappler, you're in amazing condition. Amazing. It's probably some of the best shape I've ever been in my life when I wrestled. So fitness, things like kickboxing, you'll say kickboxing class, those are usually fitness oriented. Again, they're high energy, there's a lot of jumping around, a lot of moving in and out, moving fast and stuff. Those are things that are great for fitness. So I'll put down kickboxing. Okay. Again, if you learn these martial arts, if you get in a situation where you need to protect yourself, any of these are better than nothing. And any of these may very well do the trick. You may be able to throw somebody in, an arm bar and break their arm and take away the weapon and save the day because you're Jiu-Jitsu. Kickboxer, you kick them in the head, kick out their knee, right? And you manage the altercation. So it's not that these can't work in terms of self-protection, but they're not the go-tos, okay? But again, if you want to compete, great. If you want fitness, great. The next one, again, we're talking about the emphasis, is the art form of it, okay? And when I look at art forms, I look at things like Wushu. Wushu is amazingly beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The forms, the movements, they're graceful, they're athletic. The flips and all the stuff they do is fantastic. I look at things like Shaolin, Kung Fu, things like Tai Chi, Chuan. Right. Again, very graceful, very elegant, very beautiful, very powerful. When people are kind of into the art, the aesthetics of movement, and less interested in terms of any of the martial, right? There's martial and the arts, so sometimes they focus more on the arts than the martial part. Okay. And I very much train Tai Chi for some of the physical aesthetics of the movements. They feel wonderful. They calm and soothe the mind, the body. They heal the spirit. They heal the body. Okay. So, speaking of that, the next one is healing. So the healing arts. Okay. For the most part, you're looking at things like Qigong. Right. Tai Chi also incorporates healing arts. Other art forms, martial arts, have healing aspects to them. Qigong is specific towards healing. And again, that's great whether you're working on healing yourself or learning. Qigong and Tai Chi are tied to Chinese medicine, and if you're training that, you may learn some other aspects of Chinese medicine. So in your study and practice of Qigong and Tai Chi, you may learn other aspects of the healing properties. I talk about kind of medicine of herbs, food, pressure points, meridians, all those things when I teach Tai Chi, and so those are things in Qigong, those are things that are going to help with the healing aspects. The last one I talk about in terms of a category is the philosophy. So again, Tai Chi, Qigong have deep philosophy that are oriented into it. With Tai Chi Chuan, we talk about Taoism, and then we also have the Shaolin arts, which talk about Buddhism, right? And from having studied aspects of karate, I know that the art and the healing, the philosophies in there. Not all the instructors know or are going to teach those aspects. Depends on the student, the class that they're teaching. Again, there's other arts that may have more of them. In terms of, I know in Muay Thai there's a lot of ceremony, there's a lot of cultural aspects to the practice of Muay Thai. So there's that philosophy, that art, that cultural aspect to it. So, with that, again, you've got 9 categories. You can combine some, maybe you've got some others that you're going to fill in, but hopefully this gives you a general understanding of the types of martial arts and what they emphasize. And again, the idea is to help you understand these better so you can go to a school, you can do your research on what art is going to work best for what you want to train in, or what you want your child to train in, partner to train in. What is it that is going to better facilitate that experience? Next thing you have to do is meet the instructor and see how they instruct, what they instruct. Not all instructors are the same. Not all of them emphasize the same. Not all of them have maybe trained in other arts, so they may blend in arts. So at our school, we blend in a lot of arts. Most of my classes have aspects of JKD, Kajikimbo, Kali, and Tai Chi Chuan in them. So they're kind of incorporated into each of the curriculums. So looking at that of what do they offer in terms of the martial art, what in that martial art is emphasized, and what does that instructor know and emphasize, and what is their personality, and how do they interact with their students, etc. So with these, the next topic that I'll be discussing is understanding range and distance. And I will mention some of these in terms of the different arts, in terms of what art is more focused on the range and the distance of the particular martial arts. So example, kickboxing, obviously that's a kicking range, right? Muay Thai moves more into from the kicking to kind of an elbow range. Bikini covers a lot of the ranges. Usually they're a close combat system, so they're going from the range of their weapon all the way to the range of their elbow or their fist. So we'll talk about the ranges and distances in the next video, which will better, again, help you understand, one, the concept of range and distance, but also, again, depending on what you're interested in, understanding range and distance may help you pick the martial art that works best for you. All right, guys. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, please write them in the comments below. Please contact me. I've got a Facebook page and a YouTube channel, Street Tactical Integrations. Feel free to contact me about classes. We offer in-person classes, Zoom classes. We offer year-long curriculums and classes that are kind of ongoing, running through, and some that are specialized in terms of the duration of what the curriculum or the aspect of the focus of the class is. So thank you so much. Please like, subscribe to the channel, and contact me if you have any questions. Take care.